Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. It's truly an honor to be here and a real pleasure for me to talk about both a cause and an organization that I'm so passionate about. And I want to reflect just for a couple of minutes about my own life experiences and reflect a little bit about this event today and what it's about. And I would sort of theme this as what difference an individual can make. My background, as was stated, I lead cloud strategy at Cisco, but that's not who I am, that's what I do. My background, I grew up one of 14 children, that's right, 14 children, in a lower middle class family in rural mid-Michigan. Polish Catholics, you might guess. And the truth of the matter is, every year I had a new sibling. But what that accustomed me to is this notion that children were born, they were happy, they were healthy, they came home from the hospital, they grew up, they were smart, they went to school, they did well. That's what happened. That's the way my entire family is. I have 13 brothers and sisters, all of whom graduated from college. But my life changed quite a bit as I became an adult. My first son was born normally, happy, healthy, smart. My second son changed my life. His name is Andrew, and I want to tell you a little bit about Andrew's story. So Andrew was born normally, but within a couple of hours of his birth, he went into heart failure. And the doctors told us that he had 3 major heart defects, 2 holes in his heart and some other issues. And they told us he might not live. And it just really crushed us, rocked our world. I'd never experienced anything with a person with disabilities. I'd never had any exposure to people with disabilities. And then they told us that he might have Down syndrome. I didn't know what Down syndrome was. And I went from being elated to having my second son to being absolutely lost in terms of how was my life going to change. Having not only a son that had potentially special needs, but also a son that was gravely ill. And he was gravely ill. He was in intensive care for several weeks. And about a month after he was in the hospital, the doctors came to us and said, yep, he's got Down syndrome. And you ought to think about putting him in a home. This was 25 years ago, 27 years ago now. And I was stunned. Are you kidding me? He can't even eat. He's not strong enough to suckle a bottle. He was being fed through a tube, and you want me to put him in a home? Are you kidding me? So we went through this whole experience at the hospital, and what we realized is, and this is where I began to have passion and understanding of people with disabilities, he wasn't normal. He wasn't, quote, normal. He was never going to be an astronaut or a Rhodes Scholar or President of the United States, and those doctors had given up on him. And they sent him home after about a month on a heart monitor with a feeding tube that we had to change every day. And he slept 23 and a half hours a day. And we didn't know if he was going to live. Well, he did live, and we did everything we could for him. And the more we spent time with Andrew, the more we fell in love with this little baby. He was innocent, he was precious, and through no fault of his own, he had some significant challenges in his life. And then about 6 months, when he became about 6 months old, he got even weaker than normal, and he was really listless, and he had a high fever. We took him to the hospital, and they said, he's gravely ill. He might not make it. And they transported him by ambulance, high-speed ambulance, to a University Medical Center about 45 minutes from my home. The University of Michigan Medical Center, by the way. And that moment of hopelessness as I'm driving down the highway, following the ambulance, thinking about, I knew my life was going to change. I didn't know how it was going to change, but I knew it was going to change. And I knew this was a major crossroads. We got to the hospital. They looked at Andrew. After an hour or so, they came back. The doctor said, we're going to fix him. This was the first time we had any hope from the time Andrew was born. And so we went from this thought of hopelessness to this idea of hope. Why? Because that organization didn't see Andrew as having a disability. They saw him as a human being that deserved to live. And the doctors at U of M did absolutely everything they could to cure him, and they did. They cured his pneumonia, and then they said, we want him back here 6 weeks from now for open heart surgery. Open heart surgery? He was 6 or 7 pounds. His heart was this big. So sure enough, we followed their advice. 6 weeks later, we came back in, and in Christmas of 1987, Andrew had open heart surgery. And after several hours, the doctors came out, they sewed a patch. They cut his heart open, they sewed a patch in his heart, and the doctors came out after several hours and said, "He's fixed. Have a nice life." Fast forward now, 27 years later, Andrew is happy, healthy. He lives at home with my wife. He's retired. He graduated from a special education school. He got many of the services Abilities United offers. And the development that Andrew has had is because of those services. Early intervention, physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy. Everything Andrew's accomplished is because of those kinds of services. But the more important thing is, Andrew changed my life in a profound way. You know, through every challenge comes a blessing, and I would tell you, and I've told many people, that the greatest blessing I'll ever have in my life is having a special needs son, because he taught me more than I'll ever teach him. He taught me to have empathy and respect for people with disabilities. He taught me that success is defined differently than jobs and careers and income. He taught me humility, he taught me hard work, he taught me perseverance. And he taught me that every human being has a divine humanity that is the same. We're all the same at the end of the day. We are divinely human. And just because he can't speak or talk or read or write, he's no different than you or I. He's a human being deserving of respect. And that taught me a lot. And so I've dedicated my life, and I've been a passionate advocate. When I'm not working, my part-time job is to be a passionate advocate of people with disabilities. I'm so honored to be on the board of Abilities United, which I started a few years ago. We started a special children's group at Cisco, which now has several hundred members worldwide. I've been involved in Special Olympics. I've done all kinds of fundraising for special needs. Most recently, I started a program at Cisco to hire people with disabilities to work virtually from their home so they don't have to worry about getting a wheelchair on a bus to get to work. Using technology to transform the lives of people with disabilities, because you may not know, and this gets to the point of today. Today is about raising money for employment services at Abilities United, and employment services at Abilities United helps people with disabilities get jobs. And you might not know this, but today in the United States, if you're a working age adult, 20 to 65, 76% of you have a job, except if you have any kind of a disability. The employment rate among people with disabilities in the United States is 34%. And if you go so far as to invest in an education, despite your disability, and you get a 4-year degree, whoopee, your employment rate is 54%. Only 21% of people with disabilities in the United States have a full-time job. A third live in poverty, and their household income is half the national average. It's a tragedy. And it happens in this community, and it happens in every community across this country. And we can do something about that, and that's what Abilities United does. Employment services provide services to people to get jobs and to keep jobs. $2,500 donated today is going to help one person get a job and keep a job. And another $1,000 donation today is going to help a person with a job keep his job or her job through coaching and services and counseling that Abilities United can provide. It changes people's lives. And what does it do to someone to change their life? Imagine how you feel if you have a job and you have a reason to go to work every day versus being on public assistance. What does it do for your esteem? What does it do for your health and your well-being and your outlook? What does it do for your family and your family's family? It changes everything. And that's what Abilities United does, and that's what we hope that we can foster today. We hope to raise about $125,000 to do the same thing. So what difference does a person make? Well, I would tell you, my son, who has an IQ of 50, doesn't read or write, has changed more lives than I'll ever hope to change. And he changed me, and I hopefully have an opportunity to impact other people. So what difference can you make? You can make a huge difference. Think about the blessings you have. Think about the resources you have. Think about what you can do with your life. That's what I would ask you to think about today and reflect on as we go through this program, because it's a great organization that does great things and transforms people's lives. That's what we have the opportunity to impact today. And I ask you for your generosity and your consideration. Thank you.